You're with us this morning. I mentioned that Coveo won an Innovation AI Award, so it's, I think, particularly appropriate that we have them on screen today. And I can't think of a better person to conduct an interview with them than my friend Françoise Tourniaire, who is not only the founder of FT Works, but the author of several books, co-authored one with David Kay, as a matter of fact, two of the leading consultants in the world on support, and probably even more well-known for her book, The Art of Support, which is, how many editions now, Françoise?
2.
Only 2. That's enough. It's about this thick, so it's a lot of work there to revise it. So without further ado, I'll let Françoise drive it since she's doing the interview, but certainly Patrick can say more about himself if he chooses. So I'll tune out and we'll listen to your.
Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm going to be interviewing Patrick and also check the Q&A. So as he explains to us what his team has done in terms of AI over the past year, and also his recommendations to the rest of us, feel free to just stage questions in there, and I will read them and we can answer them. So Patrick, why don't we get started? Maybe say a little bit more about yourself and Coveo, and also how you got started on these initiatives.
How much time do we have now? Just kidding.
About an hour, a little less.
So hi everyone. So great to be here. I'm Patrick. My role at Coveo, or one of the roles that I have, is EVP of the Global Customer Experience team, which in a nutshell means that I'm responsible for all the customer-facing teams that we have, so support, professional services, customer success, digital customer experience, and an operations group that holds all this together. I've been in the role for a year now. I've been at Coveo for 6. I started off at Coveo leading the support organization. That's where I pretty much spent the last 25 years of my career in support, mostly in tech. So after kind of transforming the support organization, I went and did the general manager for our knowledge line of business job for almost 10 months before I moved into this EVP role, but I also have the GM role. So I have 2. So I got a pretty good broad view of not just running the post-sales teams, but also keeping an eye on what's going on in the industry, how fast it's going, and how Coveo is shaping up to meet the expectations of our customers, of the market, and how we position ourselves, and so on and so forth. So that's what I do in a day. Those of you who are not familiar with Coveo, we are at the root an AI search and generative experience platform. We started off back in the on-prem search days, but we've been playing around with AI and ML for over a decade now. I'm just bringing these machine learning models to improve our relevance and the experience and all of that. And when the Gen AI hype hit the world, we were in a really good position to leverage these technologies and just make it an evolution of our platform. So that's about me and Coveo.
Great. So over the past year, you had quite an adventure in AI, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what motivated all of this activity, and also the kinds of things that you started doing?
Yeah, of course. So basically, if we look back at the beginning of 2023, with everything that was going on in the industry, the team was faced with a challenge that basically they had never been faced before in a growing company. Was, okay, how are we going to support the growth now, but not add any new headcount in support? Now, this might not seem like a new challenge for a lot of companies, but for Coveo, it was, because historically it was, oh, this is the growth projective. This is how we're going to hire and support to support the company's growth. But this time around, it was a little different. Thank God we had built a pretty good foundation to scale with the company's growth at a different rate since I had joined. But the reality is we had to look at it through a few different fronts. And just based on, our experience with our own customers, we knew that focusing on self-service was going to be one of the first things we needed to look at. Because if we were able to have better self-service success, less cases would be coming in. But in our world, they're extremely complex. So would we be able to have that level or continue having that level of efficiency? So service delivery was another aspect that we looked at, agent experience, operational excellence, and all of that. So that's how we broke it down into those silos. So we looked at self-service, agent experience, and operational excellence are the three main, let's say, focus areas that we identified and built our approach and our strategy around.
Great. So three main focuses, right? Self-service, agent experience, operational excellence. Do you want to start with self-service?
Yeah, because I think that's the one that I think when we think about generative AI, in the last 2 years, it's probably the one that I've heard the most about, but the least about. And what I mean about that is that a lot of people are saying, Gen AI is going to revolutionize how we serve our customers, but wait a minute, we're not ready to put it customer facing. We want to keep that, human in the loop. So we're going to focus on the co-pilot aspect of things. Well, we looked at it with a different lens and said, we're going to put a lot of our marbles in self-service because we felt confident enough that we had the right content, the right data to be able to do it, just because of the nature of what we do at heart, being an AI search company and leveraging our own technology for our self-service, which we've been doing, forever now, ever since we've developed these capabilities. It was just a natural evolution for us to focus on self-service first. So one of the key challenges for us initially was to determine how we're going to unify the experience, right? It's not just about putting an AI layer on top of your support portal, let's say, or your case submission form. It's about looking at your entire journey and say, okay, we have this in-product experience, we have our website, we have our documentation page, we have our support portal, our community, and our case creation page. So how do we unify all of this to bring the content across the board so that it's not just bits and pieces through the experience that customers would get? So that's one of the first things we've done. And we had done that maybe 2-3 years ago, and we had significant increase in self-service success, but honestly, through the years, it kind of plateaued. So when we got to June 2023, when Coveo actually announced their relevance generative answering, so CRGA solution, we raised our hand and said, we're going to be customer zero. we want this now because it really fit with what we wanted to do. So a month later, we had generative experiences as part of our digital customer experience. We started off with our documentation site and our support portal. And out of the gate, when we did our A/B testing, which is testing Coveo with no generative experiences versus Coveo with generative experiences, we saw a 43% improvement in self-service success out of the gate, which was great for us because it meant that, okay, if we turn on this switch to 100% traffic, this is going to help us scale with the company's growth because a lot of the easy stuff will be answered through self-service. So we rolled that out after that to our in-product experience. We brought it into our case submission process as well, which means it's now rolled out across all of our digital properties. And we saw a significant improvement across the board on self-service success and explicit case deflection as well. So that really kind of positioned us in an area that said, okay, now that we know what's coming in and the complexity, now that we can start focusing more on what's required for the agent efficiency and the operational excellence.
Okay, thank you. Those numbers are very impressive. And I know Ryan earlier was saying that they would start to use CRGA soon. So I don't think we can promise the same results for them, but it would be nice, right?
Well, our customers are seeing between 11 and 30% improvement. So anything in between is.
So Ryan, please tell us once you start using it what it looks like.
Yes. Yeah, just send me an email. Let me know how you're doing.
So that was the first initiative with self-service. The second thing that you mentioned earlier was this idea of agent experience. So what did you do in that area?
Yes, well, that was an interesting one because, Coveo, just because of the nature of our platform, we've always been operating in a single level support operational model. So no tiers, no nothing. So collaboration between the team is key, but it was very much unstructured. So two things we thought was very key, intelligent swarming being one of them. And the important piece in that term is intelligent. Swarming is one thing, but you got to make it intelligent.
Swarming is not so good. Yeah, I agree.
And the other one was how do we leverage this generative answering capabilities and bring it to the agents? So those are the two main things that we focused on.
Okay, so tell me more about how you made swarming more intelligent.
That was interesting because I had been knocking on our product management's door saying, hey, we should do intelligent swarming at Coveo because we have ML models, we have a bunch of things that will allow us to do it. But there wasn't necessarily a clear interest. They said, oh, Salesforce is going to do that. They have that in their roadmap to do intelligent swarming. And I said, yeah, they might have it in their roadmap, but they're missing a key piece, and it's the people finder piece. The swarming piece with the platforms we have today with Teams and Slack and all that, that's easy, right? You just build channels and all that. But the reality is that when you bring all these people in a collaboration channel, it becomes everyone's responsibility, which means it's no one's responsibility. And then you need to put layers of, to catch the things that are not being responded to, and then you end up having the same people responding over and over again because they're the safety net. So the fact that we've always acted as single tiered, we had that problem, right? We had a support agents channel where there were maybe 100 people there, and I was saying, man, this is noisy. Every time someone asks a question, you're disturbing 100 people, and every time someone answers something, everyone goes back and says, hey, was it my question that was answered? It's just like, because not everyone has the discipline of responding in threads. So we brought, some of our experts in support that understood the product very well into a small group. And we said, let's figure this out ourselves. We have machine learning models at Coveo that can identify, that can classify things in good way, like our case classification model. That's what it does, right? It looks at case context and it's going to identify you the fields on the cases that are the most relevant to classify your case. So we said, agent or case owner is a field on the case. What if we'd run this case classification model, but we'd ask the model to send us who are the top 3 agents for these types of cases? That's the first thing we did. So we used AI to solve the people finder, the expert finder. That's what we did first. And once we saw that worked, we said, okay, great. So we have Slack for collaboration, our CRM is Salesforce. So we built a custom button component in Salesforce in the agent console that said swarm. So when they need help, they click on this. What happens is that Salesforce takes the case context, so fields that we've identified that are important to, for to find the right agents. We send this over to Coveo. Coveo identifies the top 3 agents that have worked on these issues or types of issues or technology before, and the agent confirms that they want to start a swarm. And what we do is we create a dedicated Slack channel with the case number, with those SMEs and some product experts that come into the mix, and that's where the swarm starts. And if they need to pull in more people, they just add people, whether it's within support, whether it's within R&D or any other team. So the swarm is really focused on that particular case in a channel. And then with our indexing capabilities, once the swarm is over and the issue is resolved, we archive that Slack channel, and then we're able to go pick it up, index it, and then it shows up for future knowledge for agents to reuse after the fact. So we've closed that loop around swarming. So it's not just swarming, the people finder piece and the intelligence piece is being driven by, Coveo AI, which is pretty cool.
And so that makes it dynamic, right? So if somebody moves on or somebody becomes an expert, then you can identify that as well.
Yeah, as you solve cases on certain technologies, then your street creds are going to go up in Coveo, which means you're going to get pulled into swarms after.
Special team, yeah, okay.
And it really helps, especially when we went into this whole hybrid working, system. We didn't have people in the office anymore. You can just turn around and ask someone. So this came in really, really handy, and we saw some great improvements on how our new engineers ramped up faster, how they learned faster, how they had access to content faster, because yes, we'd create knowledge articles after that, but you didn't have all the troubleshooting procedure that you had in the swarm. So the knowledge article plus the swarm together are extremely complementary when it comes to trying to solve something that was already done before.
Okay, so you convinced me that you made swarming intelligent.
Yes.
You also said that there was a second part of the agent experience, which was this gen answering. So do you want to say more about that, generative answering?
Yeah, definitely. So I touched on it about the self-service pieces, bringing it to the customer. Now it was how do we bring this to the agent? Because the reality is, if you're having more success on self-service, in theory, your new versus known ratio should flip, basically, which means all the known stuff that was coming into support should be, resolved through self-service, and you'd see a greater proportion of new things coming in, which means just the dynamic search that we had in our insight panel would probably not allow us to keep that level of efficiency. So we needed to kind of rethink a little bit of that and look at internal sources that we'd want to bring in and that were there initially, but that would have been lower in the ranks of the search, because the way the insight panel works is as soon as you open a case, it sends a search to Coveo, and then you have content recommendations that come up. Most of the time in the support space, it's going to be product documents or knowledge articles. But the fact that the cases would be new, we couldn't necessarily, leverage technical documentations and knowledge articles anymore because we had not seen these issues before. However, there was R&D documentation, there was Jira documentation, Confluence pages on the features and all of that, which didn't show up in the first page of results before. But by bringing generative answering in the way that our retrieval layer works is that it goes and gets relevant paragraphs from all of our content and it generates an answer. And by bringing this over to the agent now, we've facilitated the troubleshooting of new issues, because now the relevant information that was hidden in R&D documentations and internal documents now comes up as part of the answer, which speeds up the resolution process. Agents don't have to read through tons and tons of documents to try and find the issue. The answer is automatically generated. So usually they can either cut and paste it directly or rework it if there's internal information as part of the answer that should not make its way to the customer, because that's an important piece when you bring generative answering on your internal documents. You just don't copy paste because you could get into trouble. But that's an area that we were able to bring to the agents, and we'll see later on some of the impacts that has had. But that's something that was key for us in maintaining that level of service that our customers were used to, even if what was coming to our support team was more difficult, more complex, and unknown to the team.
That's known, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've talked about self-service. We've talked about agent experience. And then you wanted to talk about operational excellence. So what does that mean exactly? Do I smell money?
Well, yeah, I mean, operational excellence, most people would maybe tie it to agent efficiency, but we kind of looked at it a little bit differently, is how do we automate some of the manual processes that we had? How can we have eyes and ears everywhere without our managers having to, open up cases and look at dashboards? How can we have, this type of workflow automation, for the lack of a better term? And that's when we started looking at different technologies out there a few years ago that were just kind of kicking off. And I heard Al say that we use Support Logic, but that's a great example, right? When we landed on Support Logic, what we were looking for was a routing solution, because what we had before was a Slack bot that when a case came in, it would send a notification to a Slack channel, and that was tied to a workload score that we had. And if you were the agent with the lowest workload score that was calculated in Salesforce, you were the one that was pinged, and you'd decide to either claim the case or pass it on to the next one or manually assign it to someone. So it worked well. However, it wasn't intelligent, it wasn't skill-based, it wasn't workflow-based. We were looking to optimize that. And I had known of Support Logic about, for their sentiment analysis and their proactive escalation detection, but they had just come out with an intelligent routing mechanism that was solely based on AI and looking at the case history of the agents and several factors. So we started testing that out, and we got good results through that. So we said, hey, for the same price of a routing solution, we can get routing, we can get customer sentiment, we can get escalation detection. So that's when we said, hey, this kills many birds with just one stone here. So that was kind of our first step into operational excellence that had nothing really to do with agent performance, but more around backlog management, proactive escalation detection, automating the routing of the cases based on skills and workload and all of that. So that was the first step in that direction.
Okay. And did you do more?
No, we just left it. We just left it there. We just turned it on and said, "Hey, it works."
You were happy with it, and you went home.
No, I have to say that the Support Logic team, first, we were their first intelligent routing customer.
Yeah.
So we got the opportunity to work with them and kind of tailor the solution to our needs. And they were a great partner in adapting some of their ML models to our reality. The reality is where Coveo is not a Salesforce, right? We don't get tens of thousands of cases a day. We don't even get that in a year.
Not yet.
Not yet. You're right. Not yet. But we don't even get that in a year. So without having the volumes to tweak the models that way, they were really, really a good partner and help us do that. We also set a lot of proactive notifications so that we take necessary actions when things were about to escalate or anything that was detected in terms of customer sentiment. So our managers didn't have to be reactive anymore to customer escalation or to a negative survey or whatnot, because at that point, we had eyes and ears everywhere across our backlog. We had dashboards that allowed us to say, oh, I think this case is going to go in the wrong direction. Let's be proactive about it and change our approach and all of that. So that was part of it. We tweaked assignment models just to find the right balance between the different factors that were used in terms of assignment. Was backlog more of a differentiator than skills, than complexity, than history with the customer. So they worked with us in tweaking all of that so that we'd find the right combination. And that really allowed us to really be more proactive around our case management in itself, which has some pretty good results in terms of our agent efficiency in the end. Because if you're routing the case to the right agent who has the right skills, it really helps with the resolution.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, for all of the attendees, I will be asking about metrics and outcomes after we have described all of the different initiatives. So it's coming. And also, if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A. So besides support logic, are there other things you did in that category?
Yes. Just once again, trying to be on the forefront, we came across this company called Frame AI. And at its root, we thought it was really complementary to support logic, because the purpose of Frame AI, at least when we looked at it, was to help you identify your actual case costs. So the tool analyzes every interaction in support cases, and you map those to activities to which you put a time allocation to it. And that time allocation brings up a cost. So it allows you to understand your cost structure, your problematic areas. So you can say this part of the product is costing me way more per case than another one. And that was interesting because we had this continuous improvement program in which we looked at volumes and problematic areas. And by bringing Frame AI into the mix, we looked at it with a different lens. If we could get hundreds of cases in a certain area of the product, but if it took us hours to resolve, those cases didn't cost us too much. But we might get maybe 10 cases for another part of the product, but that one takes us weeks to resolve. Well, if we want to reduce our cost structure, we might focus on those 10 because those are the ones that are most costly. And that's what it brought to us. So we were able to set thresholds on escalations based on cost. So if a case reached a certain cost, we could have alerts so that our management team could take action before the cost skyrocketed, and bring the right people involved. So through time, working with Frame AI, they also brought the concept of predictive CSAT. So by looking at our CSAT numbers, by looking at how we interact with customers on cases and all of that, they can say, well, we can predict that the CSAT for this case will be this much. So it's very, very complementary to everything that we've been doing from an AI front and from an operational excellence standpoint. So once again, bringing Coveo's capabilities, bringing support logic, and bringing Frame AI together really allowed us to be more proactive and to keep that level of efficiency and cost efficiencies at where we wanted it to be.
So just so that I can understand, with Frame AI, it does this computation dynamically and on cases that are not yet closed.
Yep.
The cost of the case.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, so you can, and then they have a bunch of dashboards and how you can slice and dice the data, but we could easily identify which customers cost us the most to serve. So, this whole notion of saying like your smaller customers cost you more to serve because they don't have all the same resources that your bigger customers. And we can actually prove that with a few clicks and kind of say, well, this is the customer that costs us the most, which then we can look and identify why. Are they self-serving? Are they not self-serving? How do we work with customer success or account management to get to the customer where they need to be, train, enablement, and all that, because we have that data now. So we can easily look at it from a customer standpoint, from a product standpoint, from an agent standpoint. So it just gives us you can clearly understand your cost structure. And if you're looking to be more efficient, that was like mind-blowing to us.
Very, very important. Yeah, I mean, I think support managers have very good gut feelings about that. They kind of know, what customers are taking advantage, right? But now you can have it proven to you, which is really nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you go to R&D and say, hey, we need to improve this part of the product because it's costing us this much. If this is costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars to manage these cases, is it going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix it? Because that's the argument, problem, right?
Yeah. Not that we've ever asked these questions.
Never.
All right. So you've told us all kinds of things you've done. Do you want to share some results? And I think you might have even slides showing us these things, right?
Yeah. Just give me a second. I have too many slide decks open.
Take your time. So, oh, bless you. So we are going to take a look at more detailed efficiency results. You mentioned a few in speaking, but I think we can see them. Then we would like to see, hard dollars, if you can share that. And then we'll talk about customer experience as well.
Yeah, so I got to get used to Teams. We're a Zoom shop, so Teams is just... Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, now watch this.
Did it on the first try.
I'm going to go in presentation mode and everything's going to flip. Is that right? Now we go.
Yes.
Is it good? Perfect. Okay, there we go. It always happens when you go in presentation mode, everything flips.
And then you lose everything.
yeah, you never share the right screen. Okay, so when you look at some of the results, that's one of the things when you look at median time to resolve. When your new versus known ratio flips like it did, in theory, you should see some increase in time to resolve. In our case, with everything that we've done, we've actually saw almost a little bit more than 40% improvement. So before we did all of this, we were at 2.1 days to resolve a case, and now we're at 1.2 days, which is almost cut it in half. On a 2-year span, basically. So even though what we're getting is more complex, is less documented, we're still driving that level of efficiency, which you see in the other two, which is around first day resolution and first contact resolution. We have bumped our first day resolution from 43% almost to 46. At one point, we were at 49. But now it's stabilized back to the 46, 47 percent, which is pretty good. But our first contact resolution, that's a significant increase there from almost 26 to 31%. Above more than a 20% increase. The other piece is around self-service and case deflection. I did mention the 43% improvement on self-service when we went with CRGA. But on just bringing CRGA to our case submission form, 53% improvement on explicit case deflection alone. Why do we see that? Well, a lot of our customers go straight to the case creation page because they think they know it all, right? We've troubleshot everything on our end. We don't need to go through the documentation, but the reality is, once you're submitting a case, we know who you are, you're authenticated, we know more about the products that you have, which means the answer that we generate is much more personalized than if you're just going to the doc site where it's unauthenticated, right? And so that's another explanation why that is that, we're able to be much more prescriptive on the answer and much more precise on it. And the last one is escalation requests, is we saw a 66% decrease in escalation requests. And I'll go back, because people call me crazy, but maybe 4 years ago, I had the idea of putting an escalate button in the community.
Yeah.
It says, are you crazy? People are going to be trigger happy. You don't want them to escalate. And I said, no, I want them to escalate. We're going to put guidelines around escalation, around what we're going to accept. And people are going to see, like, if it's a SEV 1, give us at least a day before you escalate, right? It's already a SEV 1. A SEV 4, it's just a question. You can't escalate a SEV 4. So we put guidelines around it. So when they escalate, guidelines are guidelines. They're not set in stone, but we manage through that. And, when we brought Support Logic in, just the proactivity of how we manage our backlog, we saw that reduce significantly, which is quite impressive. Because we all know that escalations cost 10 times more than a case, right? So
yeah, I I know from past experience. So the thing that's really remarkable here is that you managed to both increase your self-service success a lot, right? And also decrease your resolution time. And that's amazing, right? Because usually what we see is that if you increase the success of self-service, which is wonderful, you get harder cases, and harder cases take longer to solve. But here you got both, so that's kind of a magic trick here.
it helps to have low attrition as well, but
oh, really? Nobody knew that. Yeah. Okay. Well, people who have good tools tend to stick around too, right? That's another thing to think about, is when we give them all of this interesting stuff to swarm, to do this, to do that, right? Then it becomes more interesting and less of a burnout type of role.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's efficiency, right?
Yep.
Monies.
Yes, definitely. So, all of this, if you look at it, is, when we moved into this and said, okay, how do we support the company's growth without adding new headcount? Well, you see here, we were able to, reduce our cost to serve by 6.2%. So you see that increase of stuff that went to self-service, that contributes to that, plus our efficiency gains. And all in all, what we saw, even though the company grew by 15% in terms of revenue through the years, we just saw a 2.6% increase in case volume, which allowed us to stay flat pretty much. We could take on that 2.6% increase. And we continue to see here. And honestly, if I'm projecting, what we're going to do next year, I'm pretty much projecting to stay flat, even if we're probably going to see greater growth. So
Right, because your case volume is just decoupled from the
totally.
customer, from the
Totally.
sales volume. Okay, wonderful. How about customer satisfaction?
That's an interesting one, right? So when you do these types of investments, you're always saying, okay, how are customers going to react? Are they going to like it? We've seen some pretty good stuff there. If we just look at our transactional surveys, staying at 97.2, and this quarter they're at 4.9 out of 5. So even though there's not a lot of wiggle room to improve, we're still improving. So I'm not saying they're going to stay at 4.9. They could go to 5, but we're very close to that perfect score. But through the last year, it's been 97.2. So it's good. It's been steady like that. So our customers have responded very well to our ability to serve them. We brought the concept of customer effort score in our surveys maybe 2 years ago. Started off more around the 4-ish mark. Now we're at the 96%. And once again, this quarter, we stand at 4.9. So it's looking pretty good. And our NPS is at 83, which is extremely good in terms of support.
Yeah.
So really, really proud of that, because it's not easy in support, and customer expectations just continue to increase. Everybody wants to go fast. We're introducing new technologies with CRGA and generative experiences. And, we're not saying we got it perfect, but, we respond and we're there when customers need it, and it shows in our data.
Yeah, these numbers are really, really remarkable. So you started this storytelling by telling us you were asked to keep your headcount flat, right? So can you tell us a little bit about what it took to implement all of these different tools, both in terms of resources and budget? How did you manage to invest in all of that?
Well, we do a little something in support that I think Coveo is the first company that I've seen do this, is we we give our agents 10% of their time for professional development. And it's not just training, it's project work as well. So when we went into these projects, we asked the team who wants to use their, we call it 4HT, who wants to use your 4HT to be part of these projects. So when we implemented swarming, that's what we did. When we implemented, CRGA, that's what we did. So we're actually bringing the team, into these projects and saying, okay, you guys have skin in the game. How are we designing these solutions, so that you get value out of them, so that our customers get value out of them. So it's not an IT project that is spinning, somewhere and that we need to invest X amount of dollars. We're actually bringing the team into the mix, which helps in their development. It helps in learning different, technologies. It helps their understanding of the Coveo platform, because they get exposed to things that they might not get exposed taking cases. So that's one of the ways we've done it. And of course, leveraging our own technology, well, there's a benefit there that, it's almost, zero cost.
Yeah, obviously, right. But you did have to make some investments, right? I'm sure Frame AI was not free, or
No, that's those are the investments that we did around SuperLogic and Frame AI in terms of technology, and the ROI was pretty simple to justify. I mean, just the intelligent routing. We worked with the suppliers saying, okay, well, if we reach this objective, what does it mean in terms of cost saving? The escalation, and we were extremely, what's the word I'm looking for?
You mean the ROI was very high?
Yeah, it was, but we were very cautious in not being too aggressive in what we thought we'd hit. Like we said, look, if we reduce the median, if we reduce the resolution time by 25% or even 15%, and we reduce escalations by 20%, and finally we got 50% improvement in time to resolve and 66% in escalations. So it was a no-brainer in terms of ROI, and that was one of the key things that allowed us to stay flat. Because our case volume was pretty much flat, but getting more complex, but we're still resolving faster, so we can increase our capacity per agent. And Frame AI just in itself, we said, look, if we can cut costs by what it's costing us, it's going to be null. And just the 6.2% in our reduction just in support, without talking about the things that we brought up in terms of customer experience, in terms of product improvements and things like that. That is also has a pretty significant ROI, so it was a no-brainer to renew. We went into POCs to start off, and once we saw the results, it was easy to justify the investments there, because the ROI was right there just after a few months.
Yeah. Okay. So you've talked about the past, right? Your illustrious past. I'm sure you have plans for the future. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you are going to do going forward?
Yep. Yeah. And maybe to everyone's surprise, I'm not going to mention AI in the two biggest things that we're working on. One of the big initiatives that we're working on is data alignment, and data alignment between customer-facing teams. We want the customer to feel like they're dealing with one company, and that no one's blindsided and everyone has the right information when they're serving the customer. So for us to have alignment on our data models is going to allow us to better personalize our interactions with customers, make sure that everybody who touches a customer, regardless of where they are in their journey, will have access to the same information. Build our data model.
Support, success, professional services, sales, even, and
even account management, sales, support,
anybody,
CSPS. So everybody needs to have access to the same information. And once our data model is set, now we're going to be able to use that even greater to improve our digital customer experience around greater digital engagement in our user groups, in our community, inviting customers on different adoption campaigns and things like that to help us scale the success function even greater. Because we talk a lot about support here around opportunities to be more efficient, but the reality is it's the same thing on the success front. You can't just throw people at the problem. So bringing the whole data set together will allow us to scale as an organization, which is number one. And number two is a company-wide knowledge management and content strategy. And that is key, right? Yeah, I see your reaction.
So how are you navigating this, Patrick?
But this is key, right? Because knowledge management in KCF has been around a long time in support, and a lot of companies have very mature knowledge programs. But that's only one piece of the puzzle when we're talking about these generative experiences, right? If you're not bringing PS content, if you're not bringing everything that success is exposed to in terms of driving adoption and optimizing your solutions and all of that, you're going to continue just generating answers and fixing issues. But if you want that 360-degree kind of answer, complete answer, and saying, what are your best practices on implementing feature A? If TS don't contribute to that, support's not going to be contributing to that through knowledge articles. If someone asks a question, I'm using feature A, but not getting the results that I'm looking for, how do I optimize it? If CS is not contributing, you don't have that information. So it's really rolling out this broader knowledge management program and content strategy around having consistency on how we identify our content, how we tag it, so we can drive greater personalization. So those are they're the foundations of being able to really augment our AI and digital strategy, because without that, we're going to stay where we are today.
So how are you proceeding to get that done? Are you showing people your wonderful results and saying, hey, don't you want to play? Or is that part of a larger customer journey effort? Or how does that work?
Yeah, well, the beauty here at Coveo is that we sell that. So it's a concept that's easy to sell internally. Mm-hmm. Right? So if I go to the CS team and I say, you guys need to contribute to knowledge because this is what we need to do, and we're going to make it easy, we're going to make it part of the flow of work, just the same concepts that have been going on in support, they're not going to say, well, why? Because they're working with their customers day in, day out on improving their knowledge management strategy so that they can improve their customer experience. So I think we're privileged because people understand these concepts, because it's going to be a culture change. It's a way you're going to have to change the culture, change how people work. So there's a lot of change management around it. But as I mentioned, we're privileged because people get it here, which makes it easier. And some other companies, you might get a lot of pushback and say, why do I need to contribute to this, effort? But, we're hearing it more and more from our customers that content is king if you want to have a good AI strategy, because if you don't have the right content, what's going to be generated is going to be based on what you have, right? So yeah, ChatGPT, as our CEO says, can write a good poem for you to bring to your Saturday hot pot dinner. But the reality is, when you're in an enterprise and you don't want your brand to hallucinate, the retrieval layer is key. But if you have nothing to retrieve from, it's not actual, it's not factual, it's not secure, you're going to get in trouble. And I think that's where the hesitations are for people to move in the customer-facing aspect of things. But if you have the right retrieval layer, if you have the right content, you're much more prepared to go customer facing and trust the tools that they're going to do what they need to do.
So I think you're moving into the recommendations, right, that you would like to make to maybe the attendees. Do you want to elaborate on that? What do you think other people should think about?
Well, yeah, definitely. I'll go on this pretty quickly, but I don't know if this looks familiar to all of you, but when you look at your customer journey, it's not easy, right? There's a lot of different channels. There's a lot of different digital properties, or even when you look at your assisted channels, there's a lot of channels. And this is just a representation of what your potential tech stack might look like to render a complete experience from A to Z. And the reality is that all of these technologies have their own knowledge repositories and their own native search and all of that. So trying to have that unified experience is going to be a struggle, because building integrations between all of this is going to be very, very complex. And all these suppliers, none of them have a footprint across the entire journey, None of them have a footprint. So, and they're all coming to you, to me, saying, hey, we've got the best AI in the world and this is what you need to do. But the reality is throwing AI on top of your tech stack is not going to cut it. You need to think about bringing AI under your tech stack with the right connectivity layer. And that's where the challenge is. We heard a lot throughout the day around RAG retrieval. That's where the magic happens, right? If you have the right connectivity and bring all this together, you have the right retrieval tools to be able to do that, regardless of where your engagement layer is. That's the only way to drive that unified CX across the layer. So that's my recommendation, and not making this a Coveo thing at all, because there's different ways of doing this, but that's how we got the success that we've got in self-service, in our agents, and our customers are the living proof that this approach works, for sure. And start small. Don't try to boil the ocean. Start with one use case, start with one channel, start with the content that drive results, that is up to date, actual, and build from there. That's the key. That's it, just in a nutshell here. So
wonderful. Thank you so much, Patrick. So opening the floor, any questions that Patrick might be able to answer for you? Maybe you answered all of them already, so.
That, or people were still on break.
Possibly, or they were awed by your CSAT numbers and NPS numbers, and were like, oh, I can't compete. Okay, well, looks like all I have left to do is to say thank you very much, Patrick. I'm sure that if people have specific questions, they can reach out to you directly.
Of course, yes, definitely. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can send me an email to pmartin@coveo.com. Don't be shy. We're all learning from each other here, so it's going fast. So it's great for us to bring the community together and talk through this stuff.
Wonderful, thank you. And Al, I guess we'll pass it back to you.